Okay guys, I'm just coming in and still doing a little cleaning up. I decided to go ahead and clean the inside of this out a little more. So it's a little bit cleaner. You can see up there I couldn't quite get with a cloth, but I did kind of wipe this down, vacuumed it all out. We're just kind of rebuilding this power board here, and we're going to put it back pretty much like it was, but I've got to make room for that isolation transformer. And yeah, we've got the wiring we need to do the isolation transformer. I've been looking through my junk stuff, and I think I've got enough. But unfortunately, this cable here, I had made it to hook up to the Mortal Kombat 1 because I had a K7000 earlier model chassis that had this type of connection for the line input. And I made this, and I'm going to have to hack into it now because I don't have any more of these connectors right here. And that's the exact same connector that's on the end of the monitor here, if you can see. And I don't want to cut into that cable, so this fits perfectly. I'm just going to cut the connector off the end of this because that's just kind of a standard inside arcade Molex connector. I can get some more of them. We've already got our wires color coded, and it brings a ground wire up to this chassis switch. There is a spade lug connector here, and we can attach it to a screw on the frame of the chassis. So that's what we're getting into now, and hopefully get this all put back together before tomorrow because I've got some family coming over. I'd like to see if I can get this going. Okay guys, we're heating up the soldering iron on the Pace MBT, and if you're watching this arcade buffet, this is that unit that I got a few years ago. You had made a recommendation, so I picked one up, and this is the one I had to do the repair on. Remember, we had talked in the past about a part that broke on the pump inside of this thing, and you know, it was just like a piston in a car or something. You know, it was the part that moved around the motor, and it kind of makes the pump move. I don't know how to explain it. It's like a connecting rod. That's my best estimate of what to describe it as. And it was made of plastic. I thought it'd be a hard part to find, but it ended up costing about 20 bucks. And I had to tear the whole thing down to get to it and to replace it. But I have video of that, and I'll release it in the future. And you know, like I say, it wasn't that hard of a part to find. I think I sent you the part number. But this thing's working great now. I'm not having to use the desoldering iron tonight, but I've cut the end off of this cable. It was a monitor cable, and it has the right interface for this monitor on the Donkey Kong. So we're just going to take and probably remove the ground wire right now and run it a different way and just use the two connections for line and neutral. So it'll be hooked to the red, and the red's the secondary, so that'll be the output. The black is going to be hooked up to the line voltage coming into the cabinet, the unisolated 120 volts, 115 volts. Okay guys, I'm prepping the wires here. These are two reds that are on the secondary, and we've got attached to them with this, and the other end's going to connect up to the monitor to give us our isolated voltage. And I cut these a little longer, if you can see. See if I can get you a picture of this. Whoop. See, these are cut a little longer. And instead of cutting them the same size, what it is the conductors inside of these wires coming from the transformer it seems to be kind of solid core wire. If not, it's like it's tinned all the way down. Looking through the phone, it actually doesn't look solid core, but I tell you, this stuff, it's like it's tinned all the way through, and it's very hard to bend. Now this is stranded, and I've just twisted the ends together, but they can wrap around this red wire easier than the red can wrap around the black. So I'm going to wrap the black ends around there slightly and then tin them up good and solder them. And in preparation for that, what we need to do, I've got me, let's see, not this piece, but these two pieces of heat shrink tubing. I'm going to slide those over the red wires as far as I can down. And I think there's enough distance there that the wire won't heat up enough to start making that stuff shrink. Because if you ever slide that stuff just maybe a couple inches back and think you're going to get it pulled up, if you've used maybe this size, you might be able to do it. It's a lot bigger in diameter than this, but you do this, it's going to shrink up just from the heat that the wire conducts when you solder it, and it's going to start shrinking. And if you don't pull that stuff up where you need it real quick, you're going to have to cut it off and start over, or tape it. But we have a piece of red on this black. This hasn't been split apart. It's like almost like material, like an extension cord. But I slid the piece of red over that because I'm going to pull it over to cover everything, and it is a larger diameter, so it's going to cover both ends of the black and where the red is after we've got them soldered and we've got the two sleeves of black pulled up over there. Okay guys, I've got this all soldered up there. Go ahead and critique my soldering. I had to be pretty quick with it because this is very soft, this insulation around the black wire. This is a little more resilient, but didn't want to get any of it too hot. But I twisted the first one around there and got it soldered in pretty good, and tried to check it on the back sides and everything. I know you guys can't see it all. Tried to make sure there was no loose strands. I think I've got a little, yeah, I got a little loose strand on this one there. But you can't keep that heat on there too long. It'll start melting the insulation. And if you've got your heat shrink too close, it'll start shrinking. But luckily, we don't have a problem with that. So this is going to work out. We're going to slide this up. We'll let this cool for just another minute because this is still just a little warm. And hopefully it's still got enough diameter that it'll slide up over this, because the insulation on this is slightly thicker than that, but I think it'll work. And then we'll heat shrink these two down at the same time, and then we'll pull this red. We want to keep it away right now because we don't want the hair dryer to hit that. I've got a heat gun, but I don't feel like pulling it out, so I'm just going to go steal our hair dryer. And we'll shrink these down. And once we get these two shrunk down, which that'll be fine all by itself, but I like to add the extra reinforcement. Each one of these you do is like a strain relief. So you've got your solder holding it for the electrical connection, plus mechanically it's twisted around. I couldn't twist this one quite as far like I did this one. This was the first one, because when I did that, it changed how long these wires are going to be. You don't want one being a whole lot longer than the other. If you can see, I've got it pretty much dead nuts on. If some people will strip them and stagger them, and that's great to do that. But if you get your solder just about the same thickness as the insulation, you really don't have to stagger, because once you pull this up over there and shrink it down, this area here and here is going to be about the same thickness as the two wires would be. Okay guys, sorry about that abrupt end into the last clip. My phone started yelling it was running out of storage space. And I found out I didn't understand, but on this phone, I don't remember my last phone being that way, but when you delete files, of course, you know, with a computer, all that happens is it's marked that the space can be used and written over. Well, these phones, I guess a lot of the Android operating systems probably have it this way. They will delete something and hold it for like a month until they permanently delete it. Well, I had like 13, 15 gigs of files that I have deleted just doing video editing, and it was hanging on to them, and it was really running my phone low. But I went and deleted that, and so I got plenty of space back. Okay, we've got these sitting here, and we've got a trusty hair dryer, and we're going to use it on the low setting because it doesn't take much. And we're just going to go ahead and shrink these down, and then we'll pull the red up, and we'll shrink that down, get this taken care of. I'll do some of this on camera. We're just going to use the lower setting. And that's really all it takes. Just making sure I didn't get the table too warm. No, it's not too bad. That must be some pretty good working stuff. I haven't used it a lot. I've got a couple little cases down there, and that came from either Advanced Auto or AutoZone. I think it came from AutoZone. Seems to work pretty good. But so I pretty much shrunk them up. And if you see what I was talking about, if you don't get your solder just too gobby, then right dead center in here is where the soldering is. It's not really much bigger in diameter than the wires are with their normal insulation. It's definitely not bigger than what it is with the heat shrink over it. So we got that covered up good. And we're going to take and slide our red over. And we cut this in half. This was one piece. This black heat shrink. So now let's pull up the red. If I can do it one-handed. Come on, red. Everyone wants to see you. Hold that, burn it. Let me get it with my hand and pull it up. It's been kind of aggravating. I'm going to set the phone down for a second. I'll come back in the next clip because you do have to kind of push this over and it's going to start shrinking because it's warm. Okay, guys, we got it pulled up over there, and we tried to leave some even spacing between the black, where the solder connection is in the middle, and the red. and I had to grab it with my needle nose right quick and give it a little tug because it was trying to shrink just from the warmth of what we just did, and I could have let it cool a little bit, but I was just in a hurry. If you take too much time, well, it doesn't hurt to take too much time, but if you do it too quickly, you're going to pull it up over there, and all that heat from what you just did is going to start shrinking that, and you'll never get it over all of this. So let's go ahead and shrink this down right quick. I'll do it on camera. Okay, made pretty short work of that. Got the table a little bit warm there. Just trying to make sure I don't get things too hot. But you do have to be careful sometimes. If you use a heat gun or something, you can end up remelting solder that's somewhere in another connection. So it's kind of nice to do this like I'm doing it outside the cabinet, and I've got it out on a table. But you can't always do that. Sometimes you got to work inside a cabinet or around other electronics. So just kind of watch where you're putting your heat. What some people will do is actually use a cigarette lighter or a very small butane torch. And if you do that, you have to be real careful because, you know, depending on the quality of the heat shrink tubing, you can burn right through it. Okay guys, you're gonna notice we've lost some lighting because my phone's getting a little low on charge. So I'm gonna plug it up to charge and do a little bit more of this. You see what I'm doing is we had this kind of a wire wrap thing that was around here. And even though it's older, I kind of like it. Gives you some extra protection for your wires. And since this is 120, 115, 110, whatever you want to call it, depends on where you're at and what's coming out of your wall. Really, I think I've got 123 volts coming out of my electricity through the outlets here. But we're just going to wrap that on up and pull it down to about right here and just give this some extra protection, which it doesn't really need. I mean, that's plenty strong, believe me. But that's going to make it look more uniform instead of like two different shades of red and black. So you'll just see the red on this end, and you'll see a couple of strands of black where that clicks into the monitor where its power input is. So I think that'll look pretty cool. So we're going to do that, and we might do a few steps that you don't see on camera, but I'll show you the results.